Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Manders Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I'm here today with one of my super close friends, honestly, one of my favorite people in the world, Russell Azzarello. Russell and I met back in college when we both went to Roger Williams. We met in kind of a unique way. I could not unlock my dorm bedroom door, and Russell saw me struggling when he came out of his room. And we've been pretty close ever since. He has helped me with a lot of different things, from small random things like my not being able to get into my own bedroom to bigger life advice and everything in between.
I'm so excited to be here, Amanda. This is I'm like pretty stoked that this podcast is like a thing. So and it's honestly kind of just an honor to have been like in touch with you over the years too, because I know that there's so much growth that you've had and I've had, and I'm like really hoping that we can like dive into a bunch of that stuff today.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being here. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
of course.
And for those of you who don't know Russell and I's friendship, we've been through a lot together. We danced together back in college, worked together in admissions. He helped me get out of my toxic relationship. So
Oh my God.
he almost forgot about that. So we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. So let's get right into it. So my first question for you is, who is Russell Azzarello at the core? Your identity, who do you say you are? A lot of people tend to ask, what do you do? Maybe you relate this to that, maybe you don't, but I just want to know who you consider yourself to be.
Oh my God, that's such like a loaded question. I love it because it's because of how like open-ended it is. Um I I've been trying to figure out who Russell is for the past the 26, almost 27 years I've been alive on this earth. Um I'm a free spirit. I think like at the end of the day, who I am, that's it. I am just a free spirited person. Russell likes to just do what he does when the wind takes him as he goes. Um, and I know that now, like especially nowadays, like, and I'm sure so many people in our generation can relate to this. Trying to figure out who you are, whether it's like who you're supposed to be from like a career standpoint, with when we were in school, who we're supposed to be from a like a major standpoint. All of these things are so big in how we like latch them onto our own identity. And I feel like lately I've been trying to actually like separate myself from what my major, what my career, job, whatever is, because I don't think that like the jobs and careers that we have always like define us. They're just like a thing that we do. Um, I'm a big plant guy. I love plants. That's how I got into the job that I'm in now. And now I'm in a situation where I'm debating on like if I should even be with it or not. And not because I don't like the plants, because I still love plants, but more or less just because I'm debating like, should I do my own thing with plants? Should I just do plants as like a hobby and like love them that way? Like, I don't know, like sometimes like you know how like people like make the joke about like, oh, like I love kids, but like I love other people's kids. Sometimes I feel like that's me with like the plants like right now. Like I love plants like when I see them outside, like in like people's landscape or like in my own landscape, maybe. But I'm like, do I always want to like work with them? I don't know. Do I want to like tend to them, care for them like all day, every day? Debatable in some senses, but like it's like it's a weird thing. Um, I'm just I'm a nice guy. A lot of people say let nice guys finish last. I don't like that because I don't think that I'm finishing last in a lot of things. But And I was literally talking to one of my coworkers actually today about that. But I'm definitely a nice person. I don't think a lot of people joke about how no one can hate me, even though I know a couple people who do hate me. But whatever. But yeah, no, I am I'm just a free spirited, plant loving guy who's nice.
I would agree with that.
That's a pretty solid summary, I think. And I like dance. I didn't know I liked dance. I know Amanda brought that up, but I love the fact that I joined dance on a whim because I was kind of forced by my friend Natasha in school to do that because we did gymnastic club together, and she was like, if I'm gonna do gymnastics, then you're gonna do dance. And I was like, bro, you're kidding. And then I ended up like choreographing like 2 different dances in the dance club, and then I was in ballroom dance and I choreographed ballroom dance too. And I was like, well, what am I doing right now? But I love that like little fun fact. I've had people on my job interviews sometimes being like, oh, I see here on your resume that you did dance. Have you always done dance? I'm like, nope, never, never did a day in my life. And then I just started in college, freshman year, walked in, boom, there I was.
Oh my gosh. That is true.
Yeah, it is very true. And I honestly, Amanda, until you said it, I completely forgot that like dance club was a thing. And like remember, like when we did like boy girl dance together, and even like senior dance, like those were so fun.
I know.
Yeah, no, those were fantastic. So
Plus us
okay,
going down memory lane.
yeah, now I'm going down memory lane now. Add dancer to the identity. I am also a dancer.
Oh my goodness. Well, while we're at it and going down memory lane, next question kind of ties into that. So, with whatever you're comfortable about sharing with this, but can you tell us a little bit about your family dynamic, your childhood, and your upbringing up until now?
Yeah, I mean, sure. So I was born and raised in Old Bridge, New Jersey. I am a true Jersey man, basically a full-blooded Italian man at that. So that I'm just like the walking stigma of what a Jersey Italian guy is. I have a huge Italian family that is just obnoxious and loud on both sides of my family. I'm one of 15 grandchildren on my mom's side, and I'm one of 8 on my dad's. No, now I gotta do the math in my head because I'm losing track of everybody that's in my family. Um, yeah, no, I was right. One of 8 on my dad's side. So I alone, I have 12. I have 17 first cousins in my family overall. So that it's big, and like I'm close with all of my cousins. Like I hang out with my 16-year-old cousins. I was with them this past weekend, and we just went down to a food truck festival together. And I talk to all of them. My oldest cousin lives in Virginia, and she owns a farm. And me being a plant guy, I'm very invested in the fact that she lives on a farm. Um, like I talk to all of them. I go to Wednesday dinners every Wednesday night with my mom's side of the family, and then on Sundays we have Sunday dinner with my dad's side of the family. So I'm a family man added to the identity. Um, I'm always with my family. My cousins were my first friends, and they are my best friends to this day. The age gaps aren't even like that huge at this point of our lives either, which I think is really nice because now even my cousins who are like 35 years old, I'm like able to connect, even though again I'm only 26, but the 10-year age gap makes a huge difference when you're younger. And the fact that now we're like not the same age, but we've gone through similar things or are going through similar things, whatever. We're all able to connect a lot easier and enjoy life a lot more together. So it's so nice. I have two sisters. I have an older sister, Stephanie. She actually moved to Boston. Well, outside of Boston. She was the inspiration for why I went to Roger Williams, actually, because she went to school in Connecticut. And when I was going through the college search, because she's only 3 years older than me, I was like, how do I do college? Like, how do I find a school? And she told me, like, oh, like, look at schools in New England. And at the time, I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I looked up schools with marine bio and I found Roger Williams. And I definitely did not finish a degree with marine biology, but I saw the picture of the school and said, that's pretty cool. I'm going to go there. So I guess I could thank my sister for that, because then if it wasn't for her, then me and you wouldn't be here right now.
True. Tell her
Which
I said thank you.
I will definitely send her a memo and say that you said thank you. But she's awesome. She's a very headstrong person. She is very motherly, and I think it's like the typical like older sibling kind of vibe. But she takes care of me and my younger sister. She's always checking in on us, even though she lives up in Massachusetts now, which is, sad that we don't get to see her as much. But she does keep in contact. I'm up there maybe at least 3 to 4 times a year to visit her. She comes down here about maybe like half the year just to come down, like a weekend, pop in, say hi, whatever. So we still are definitely close. We're definitely tight. And then my younger sister, it's funny because I always describe her as my trigger person. And my oldest sister is only 5 years older than my youngest sister. So I'm literally like smack dab in the middle between the both of them. And growing up, my younger sister and I were always at like each other's necks, like kind of quite literally. And as I've gotten older, as we've gotten older, it doesn't, like, we're not obviously like, jumping and like wailing on each other like when you're like kids and stuff. But she just, like, her presence sometimes, and I'm like her trigger person too, because I could do the same thing. I could just walk down the stairs and like enter into like the kitchen, and immediately like we're both just like angry for whatever reason. We could just look at each other and it's like, don't open your mouth, don't say a word. But it's just like how a relationship is sometimes. But she's also like my best friend. So whenever she's home, I'm always like happy that she's home. She makes me laugh, I make her laugh. And it's so nice. And then when me and my younger sister go to see our older sister, we usually do like a sibling weekend, and we'll go up and we'll just hang out with my older sister. It's funny to see like her in-laws face, because we bring out the jersey of my older sister. So then, here she is like acclimated to like the New England Bostonian like lifestyle. And then here these two Jersey people come, and then suddenly my older sister Stephanie starts talking like with like a little bit of like that Jersey accent, and she starts talking about stuff, and the attitude kind of shifts a little bit. And me and my younger sister are like, we still got her. Like she's still got Jersey in her. Like she's not like completely lost. So it's really funny. It's really funny. But I love where I grew up. Like I said, my family all lives pretty close. The furthest person in my family lives like maybe 40 minutes away. So we're all seeing each other all the time. It's great to be able to have such like a close family unit. And I think that having that close family unit is so not only like important for myself, but it's so valuable to me, because I don't know where I would be without the family unit that I have.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you touched on liking plants a lot. How did you get into liking plants? Have you always liked them? Is that a newer interest?
I've always been like this like environmental nut in a way. When I was in full, I want to say like third or fourth grade, I wrote a letter to Al Roker on Good Morning America or the Today Show. And I was like, climate change is an issue and we have to address it. And oh my God, the world's gonna be on fire. All because like I read this one book and I'll never forget it. They were great books. Again, I was a weird, nerdy kid. Everybody was watching Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network and stuff. And I was watching like Animal Planet, the Discovery Channel, and I was like, ooh, science. So I had this one book and it talked about the weather. And I was reading through it, whatever. And at the end of the book, like one of the last pages, it talked about like, oh, and nowadays it's getting harder for scientists to predict weather because of climate change and patterns are changing due to like the global warming patterns that are happening in the world. And I was like, what is that? And then like I hit Google and I just typing in climate change and global warming, and I fell down the rabbit hole that the internet is as a 8-year-old, and I'm panicking that the world is basically gonna burn down from what the internet's telling me. So I'm writing this letter to Al Roker. I watched this documentary called The Inconvenient Truth when I was in fourth grade. And I don't know if anybody's seen The Inconvenient Truth or if you've even seen The Inconvenient Truth before, but it is the documentary is it's a fascinating documentary, but no fourth grader at the time, I feel like, should have been watching this documentary because it's basically just Al Gore talking about all these scientific terms and everything and explaining how the world is changing from the climate standpoint. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is so fascinating. This is amazing. I can't believe that this is happening. We need to do something. So I watched it again in like sixth grade, and I told my English teacher at the time that I had a whole presentation that I could do about it. And she's like, yeah. Like after the movie, like you can give your presentation. And it never happened. And $10 says that this woman was like, this kid is crazy. But I was just so passionate about it. So my whole life, I've just been into the idea of like the environment, trying to be eco-friendly and everything. And I wanted to like start like a little garden in my backyard when I was a kid. My mom and I, we went to like Home Depot, bought some seeds, planted them, grew like watermelons that didn't grow bigger than like the palm of my hand. And we were like, oh, we did good, I guess. Because we didn't realize we couldn't put them in pots at the time. Ridiculous looking back on it, because why would you put watermelons in pots? They are massive. But I always loved plants. My grandparents actually live right next to a state park. So a lot of my early childhood was spent with my grandfather, who I also have a very, very good relationship. We share a name. I am his like I was named after him. I'm like the namesake of the family and stuff. And me and him spent a lot of like quality time just walking through the park on different trails. And the park is my second home, and I always tell people that's my safe space. Cheesequake State Park, look it up. And I just loved going there as a kid. I still love going there now that I'm like a full-grown adult, which is weird to say, but I am an adult. And it's just nice to be able to connect because it's so peaceful. You just hear the birds chirping, the wind rustling through the leaves and stuff. It's just a beautiful just like scene to be in overall. And I truly do find peace when I'm there. So that definitely had a lot of impact too. I grew up, like I said, just being there all the time, being surrounded by nature. I grew up, there was a farm that used to be across the street from my house. I have woods all throughout the back of my house. I would run through the field with my neighbor when we were kids, and we would like go collect corn and squash and stuff that we probably shouldn't have been doing when we were kids, but whatever, we did it anyway. More than half of it got like plowed over come the winter anyway. So we would just like take a couple things in like baskets and run back across the street. We'd fly kites in the field all the time. I was surrounded by all this open space. And I got to be and have like an up close relationship with plants as a child, and I think it's like definitely impacted me overall. But it wasn't really until I got to college that I really like fell in love with plants. I took a study abroad. I went abroad in Italy with the study abroad program in our school, and while I was there for the semester, I took a food and culture class, and our professor brought us to an urban garden. And for anybody who doesn't know what an urban garden is, it's basically a place where, in a concrete type environment that cities tend to be, or just a space where it's highly built up and there's not a lot of greenery, people try and bring that greenery in, whether it's just through pots. If there is workable ground, they'll use the workable ground. But they try and create spaces that help, whether it's feed the local population, just have local people able to just go and garden themselves and get their hands in like the dirt and literally like touch grass. That's like a new thing now. People are like, oh, like go touch grass. When people are getting like irritable, you just tell them to go outside and like touch some grass instead of like smell the roses or the smell the flowers. But it was so fascinating to go there because when we were there, the man who was running the urban garden was talking about how every single plant in this urban garden space had medicinal properties and could help you if you had like a stomach ache or if you're having an allergy attack. And I was sitting there going, there's no way that these plants are doing that. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind to know that medicine is like how like plants, like plants were the original medicine. And it made sense, obviously, like when I like thought about it later on, like, oh yeah, like back in the day, like people had to have like remedies for stuff and they didn't have a pill that they could just pop. And I felt that was it. I came home and I was like, Mom, we're making an herb garden. And that summer, I planted a bunch of different herbs. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just planted a bunch of herbs in the backyard. And I have a bunch of them that are still going to this day, actually. It's been like 5 years now at this point, maybe even more. And they're still alive and well doing their thing. And whether they're in the same pot, different pot, whatever. And the garden, and then it blew up from there. It went from herb garden to let's toss in a couple flowers to maybe I should start experimenting with veggies and fruits. And now what I've really gotten into is understanding native plants and how every ecosystem in the world essentially has plants that are native to that specific region. And understanding the relationship that pollinators have with these plants and the difference between planting a plant that's native versus planting a plant that isn't native, and how that non-native plant is either weakening pollinators or taking over, potentially invading ecosystems that they're not supposed to be in. And there's like detrimental effects that it could have on our on the areas that we live in. And I'm like, that's my biggest kick lately. And I try, like, I know that some people, when it comes to like gardening and stuff, they're like, oh, well, I like this and this is a pretty plant and I want it. And I totally get it. Like there's a lot of plants that I plant that I'm like, you're not supposed to be here, but you're going to get planted anyway. But I'm going to make sure that you don't like take over my yard or something like that. Because like I said, I live by woods, and the state park that my grandparents are by isn't far away. So heaven forbid a seed gets carried into, the park or something takes over the whole park, that there goes the ecosystem. So I definitely try and make sure that I'm vigilant with the plants that I plant, and I'm on top of the plants that maybe potentially shouldn't be in my yard. But I've done a lot of research myself, and there's so much that I have to do. I took a couple horticulture classes, got certified in horticulture and landscaping design and stuff, because I just fell in love. I loved them, and I took it to the next level. And then I was in a class about plants, and then I'm sitting there going, you know what? This is it. I love plants. Period. Full stop. So now it's just me trying to figure out like what plants are supposed to do for myself. Are they just going to be pretty things that I look at in my backyard, or am I going to take it places? Am I going to help people with them? So that's kind of how the plant relationship like kind of like all like started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knew people could love plants so much, huh?
I have a lot of questions and comments based off of that story.
Yeah. Go for it. 100%.
I had a very hard time keeping a straight face when you wrote a letter to Al Roker.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah. That was nutty. That was very nutty.
Did you get a response from him?
You know what? I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure that even if the Today Show got the letter, they probably just went, "Aw," and that was probably it. Which is sad, because I think that if I got a letter back from Al Roker, I would have been like, lit. Because at the time, I also wanted to be a meteorologist. So if I got a letter back from Al Roker, like the #1 meteorologist, like on the TV, basically in my eyes at least, I would have been like, "Oh my God, he's so famous. I love this."
Oh my God. Oh, that's hilarious. So you mentioned about how you heard about, I think you said it was in Italy, your professor mentioned about touching grass to help heal you. Is that where you heard that?
So no, it's an expression that a lot of people have been saying now. Instead of like, you know, when people are like, "Oh, like go wake up and smell," or like wake up and smell the roses, or like if they're like telling you like they're like, "Oh, like you seem like you're like stressed, like go for a walk, smell some roses," or something like that. Like they're the new thing is like, "Oh, you're like the some nerve you have, you need to go touch grass." Like it's like a get back in touch with reality kind of thing.
Do you believe that? Do you agree with that?
I 100% do. I think there's so many people in the world that need to touch the damn grass, and they need to like come back down from reality. Because, and in all honesty, it's not like from like a political stance, obviously, but there are legitimate climate things that are going on, and people are just ignoring it, and it's kind of ridiculous in my own mind as to how people are ignoring it. And I understand that there's a lot of politics involved, and that's why people don't want to like have like a side to kind of pick. And my opinion about it all is that like we're all on this planet, and if things aren't done, we're all toast, essentially. And I mean, like, I want to have kids. I want my kids to grow up in a world where they can see polar bears, and they can go outside in the summertime, and they can, you know, not worried about the ozone layer not existing, and the fact that they will like burn to a crisp if they're outside for like more than 10 minutes or something like that. You know, I want to be able to have my own life and have kids. I can have their own lives and have their kids have kids. Like I want all of us to be able to do these things and have future generations enjoy the stuff that we've enjoyed. And when people talk about how these things are not real, I think you should really go touch the grass. Or even when people are just so obsessed with like making money, or how I have to be successful or something along those lines too. I understand the need to want to live, and the need to, or the want, I should say, to like have nice things, and you know, be able to like do certain things too, because we all know that the reality is you do need money to do certain things in the world. Yeah, I can't just hop on a plane and go to Europe without money. I need to pay somebody to take me there, unfortunately. But if I have my own plane, I do it myself. But I also need money to get a plane, unless I can build it. But I need to get an education, which goes back to the money. So it's something that in our world we need, and it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And to just not be able to like take for some people to not be able to take themselves out of situations and either like see someone else's perspective or be so stuck in their ways. To me, it's just like you literally need to get a reality check. You need to literally come back down to earth because you're in this made up world in your brain. And again, you need to touch that grass to just get back in touch with stuff.
No, I completely agree with that. I don't know if you might have seen it. There's a movie called Oathing, and they mainly talk about not necessarily touching, but the bottoms of your feet touching the grass, grounding your feet with the earth. So when you said that, I was like, of course Russell knows about this. And you were like, no, it's an expression.
Yes, I also it's funny because I have also heard about grounding. And the first I've heard about and I don't even remember the first time I did hear about it. I love walking around like my backyard barefoot. My mom she goes crazy because I'll literally go upstairs, shower, and then walk downstairs and walk outside barefoot in the grass. And she's like, "You just showered and now your feet are dirty." And in my brain, I'm like, "Yeah, but they're my feet, one, and two, it's not like they're like I didn't walk through like the mud. I'm not tracking dirt throughout the house. I just stepped on some grass. Calm down." But I there's I don't know if you saw the documentary with Zac Efron, Down to Earth,
I
but
didn't.
in it, the one of the guy that he is in it with, he grounds himself in one of the episodes, and Zach like talked about the why he did what he did. He talked about like when the guy that is like not his co-host, but the co-star of the show, if you will. I forget his name. His name escapes me, but whenever they go on like long journeys, the first thing that the guy does is he gets out of the car, he'll take his shoes off and his socks, and he'll just stand in the space. Because after not being like touching the ground I just made air quotes for anybody who can't see me. But he talked about like when you're like doing like long journeys like that, it's important for your body to like reconnect and like get like back in like a rhythm. And by doing it, there's like science behind your body actually being able to connect to the earth. And again, I think that a lot of people nowadays, it's like a Salem witch trial kind of thing where you make this comment, people are like, "You're crazy," type of thing. But that to me again is going back to the comment of like how people need to touch grass. It's just getting back in tune. You just this is what some people are literally in touch with, whether it's nature, their surroundings, whatever. And there's so much beauty in being able to just like sit with nature, whether it's with your bare feet in the grass or laying in the grass, looking at the clouds, whatever it is, and just like feeling the grass touching your body, feeling the breeze across like your skin, hearing the birds chirping, or even just like the leaves rustling like through the wind. Everything about it, especially for like myself, it touches a part of us that is so like primal, and that we're all like so out of touch with, I feel like.
No, I completely agree. 100%.
Yeah.
So would you say, outside of grounding or outside of touching the grass, what would you say are some suggestions that you have for other people as to kind of get back into reality, to ground themselves, to come back into the present moment?
So after I quit I should say I quit, but after I left Roger Williams the first time around, I became a personal trainer, and I've always been like a huge like fitness person and somebody who just loves being active. And one of my biggest things is being being active, period, always helps me get more in touch with like my reality and my surroundings. It helps calm me if my anxiety is up, if I'm feeling down on myself for whatever reason. Being physical is always a go-to. And I mean that for myself, and I also mean that for everybody, because again, we all come from like the same essence essentially as far as like our human nature. And that need is there for all of us to be active in some way. And I think it's hard for some people sometimes because they'll hear that and they're thinking like, oh, they have to be in shape, they have to like be super fit or whatever. And one of my other realities that I came to when I was a personal trainer is not everybody is meant to have a six pack. Not everybody is meant to be bench pressing their weight. I think it's good if you can bench press your body weight, and it's something that a lot of people should like aim to do, but it's not something that everybody is made for. Some people yoga it, and they're big yogi people, and that's how they do their life. Other people are mixed martial artists. Other people just like to go hiking. I knowing what your niche thing is to be active, I think is important. If you want to do like your little mom walk around your neighborhood, mom walk the hell out of your neighborhood. Do your thing, live your life, you know. But it's that I think is the best, my number one best way for people to try and ground themselves. If I were to say anything else, just think like about like what calms you. Is it like your significant other? Is it lighting a candle in your bedroom and just meditating? Is it listening to white noise because you just want to hear nothing for a little bit because maybe you have like a super active job where it's just loud all the time, you're working like a construction site and you just need to just be like alone and not with people or just noise. I think that that's also like a very big and important thing for people to be aware of. And just knowing what your body is needing and asking you. So again, like for myself, if I'm like getting like super anxious, I know that's my body basically telling me like, hey, we need to move because we're being idle and this is not a good thing. And even when I'm not necessarily being anxious, like sometimes I am moving. Sometimes I literally just went to the gym and I come home and my anxiety kicks in because whether it's something like maybe like work related that happens, or if it's something like my family and something's going on in my family and it's just making me nervous, being in the space is not good for me. Like I know I need to like get up, move, go somewhere else, go for a walk, pace around my yard, something. But I know that they're like, you have to have your outlet to help you get clarity. That's like the numero uno thing I think that a lot of people just need to do and be aware of for themselves.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. That was great. I agree with all of that. Honestly, I don't know if you've heard of her. Have you ever heard of Rachel Hollis?
I have not. Tell me more. Tell me more.
She's a public motivational speaker. She has a podcast. She's an author. Love her. I admire her completely. And she has this saying that I actually even have a tank top that says this now that I bought of hers, but it's called "Move Your Body, Change Your Mind." And I completely agree with that. And even like you were talking about, a lot of times people often think when they hear, oh, you've got to be active, oh, you should move your body, they often assume you need to go to the gym. That is not what it necessarily means to me. Even like you said, whether it's a walk, whether it's yoga, whether it's hiking, physically moving your body will get you out of the mental headspace, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress. And it doesn't have to be an intense movement. It could be a 10-minute walk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. And I I would tell my clients all the time that your fitness journey is your fitness journey. And I know that a lot of even some of my coworkers would potentially like preach to other people's or like make comments about people, be like, oh, like that person needs to lose weight, or like even like talk about like some of my clients and make comments about how they're not progressing in like the right way, or whatever it may be. And I obviously, again, like as a trainer, knew what like the healthiest thing is. I knew that, like I could see like from some of my clients, they would step on a scale every month and we would have our check-ins and we would talk about what was going on and everything. And seeing that they would be, like, oh, like I only lost like a pound this week or something like that. And we would talk about diets and what they did and everything like that. And they'd say like, oh, like I hit McDonald's again, or, oh, I didn't eat enough this week, or whatever the case may be, or this month. To me, it was more or less just you are aware of what you're doing, and you have to make the decision of whether or not you're going to, completely make like this huge 180 turn, or if you're going to go only like maybe like 90 degrees with it or 45 degrees with it. And if you're just kind of like not doing that complete pivot, again, this is your life. That's fine. But you have to be realistic and understand that your goals are not going to be achieved until you make the changes that are required to get to that goal. If you're not going to eat the certain amount of calories and protein intake that you need for the day, then you can't be telling me that you're trying to bulk up to this weight, because you're not going to get there. There's no other way to get there other than to do this thing that I'm telling you that you have to do. If you want to lose the weight, then I'm telling you have to make sure that you're at the gym 3 times minimum during the week. And if you're only giving me 1 or 2, all right, well, it's better than nothing, but you're still not going to get to exactly where you want to get, unfortunately. But again, it's your life. And if you truly are happy with knowing this is where I am and this is where I'm at, fine. Do your thing. Live your best life. I'm happy to help motivate you and get you any more, advice or progress in any way, shape, or form I can. But I would learn quickly how hard to push people and when to preach them and when not to preach them, because eventually I just was like, all right, like this person isn't listening to me. So why am I going to waste my breath?
Now that is some of the Russell wisdom I was referring to. That horse feel right there, that was it. But I completely agree. Regardless of whether it's weight loss, bulking up, even career goal, romantic goal, any type of change you want in your life, you can only do it for you. People can give you the blueprint. They can tell you what they recommend or how to do it, but they can't make the change for you. They can't go to the gym for you. They can't prep the food. Well, okay, you could get meal prep food, but realistic, most of the things you have to change for yourself. And until you are ready to make that identity change, you're not gonna. Only when you're ready for that.
And change is a thing that so many people have a hard time with. And I get it. I totally understand that change is scary. And like, I left my hometown to go to college in a state that I've never been to. I didn't know a singular person on the campus. And there I was. It was horrifying, especially on top of the fact that New England culture is so different than New Jersey culture. And I know that I talked to you about this so many times when I was in school too, because I couldn't get to this day I can't get over it. My sister married a guy from the Boston area, and I love my brother-in-law. He's a great guy, but the culture to New England truly was a shock. to myself, and I had culture shock in the country that I was born into. And it was crazy to me, especially because my senior year of high school, I went to Italy for 2 weeks, and I experienced more culture shock in Rhode Island than I did when I was in a foreign country. It was nuts. But I was for the whole first semester I was at school, I didn't think a singular person in my dorm liked me.
We all loved you.
Well, and I found that out after Christmas break. I should say I found out that they loved me, but I found out that they enjoyed talking to me, I should say. But beforehand, no, not a singular person in my dorm. I mean, you talked to me. You moved in like what, midway through the fall semester?
It was not midway. It was September.
Was it? I thought you came in a lot later than that. But okay, so you came in September, and I talked to you. I kind of talked to Rob, but I didn't really talk to him that much. I talked to the guy Andre that lived across the way. I talked to my roommate Luke, and the guy Emerson that lived next door. And those were the only people we talked to. But they weren't people that I didn't dislike them per se, but they weren't my people. Like I was like, they're my neighbors, and I would chit chat with them. But any of the girls that lived in our dorm, any of the guys on the bottom floor, I would say hi to them. They would say hey back, but no one was actively like going out of their way to really like chit chat with me that much. You and I were the only people I felt like for that first semester I was talking to. And then there was another girl, Erin, in our dorm that I talked to here and there, and I felt comfortable with her and everything, but no one else. And then I'll never forget it because I came back from winter break, and one of the girls, there was the two Emmas that live with us. One of the Emmas was like, "Oh, hey Russell, like how was your Christmas? Like how was your winter break? Like did you have so much fun?" And I literally said to her, "You know my name?" Because I genuinely did not think that they knew who I was. And I was so shocked. And they were like asking me like to go out with them that later on that night. And we went to the club, and they're like, "You're so fun. Like we should hang out, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Since when do you want to be my friend?" And then like we would walk around campus, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you know so many people." And I was like, literally for the first semester, I had to find people to hang out with because none of you guys seemed like you wanted to hang out with me. It was the craziest thing in the world. And I would talk to people on the campus all the time about like, "Hey, is it me or is this place kind of weird?" And they're like, "No, yeah, like New England has a way about it. It's kind of odd." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Whatever."
So I'm curious if you can elaborate more so on how you feel New England is so different from New Jersey. Like
I can't, I can't even like really put my finger on it. Like it's something I feel like you just kind of have to like you would have to like experience for yourself. I think that the New England attitude, there tends to be like a nose up in the air kind of thing. And I got the vibe that people were kind of like looking, especially when I would say like I'm from Jersey, people would be like, "Ew, dude, Jersey." And I always would tell people, I'm like, "Listen, I know that I'm trash, but I'll still kick
I
your ass."
remember you saying that.
I would always tell people that because in my brain, I was like, "Listen, I know where I'm from, and I have a lot of pride in where I'm from. So don't mess with me." But I was never mean. Like I said before, like I'm a nice person. I was never mean to anybody. But I went into the lower commons dining hall, and this is when my mind was truly blown. I asked for 2 plain slices of pizza, And the guy behind the counter looked at me and he said, "To what?" And then the cashier says, "He means he just wants the pizza without the cheese." And then someone else in there said, "No, he doesn't want the sauce. He wants the cheese. He just doesn't want the sauce." And I was so confused on what was happening in front of me because I wanted just two plain regular slices of pizza, and pizza has cheese on it. I don't know of a pizza unless I ask for a cheeseless pizza. It makes zero sense to me. So I'm looking at the guy and I said, no, I want the cheese on it. Like, I just want a pizza, the way it comes, the bread, the dough, the sauce, and the cheese. And he was like, "Oh, that's a cheese pizza, man. You don't know your pizza." Every part of my being, like, cringed. I was like twitching looking at the guy because I literally said to him, I said to this man, it's like my third day on the island at school. And I said to this man, "My family is Italian. I'm from New Jersey. My parents are from New York. I think I know what pizza is." Like, how insulting that somebody just told me, a New Jerseyan, that I don't know pizza. And then I can name only like a singular place that I went to in Rhode Island that was in like Bristol that I was like, all right, this pizza's all right. And it was all right. It wasn't blowing anything out of the water. I was like, these people need to come to my hometown. I have 30 pizza places in my hometown, and every single one of them is fantastic. And there's a singular one, Bristol House of Pizza, that I was like, yeah, this can get the job done. I'm not thrilled, but it can get the job done. And then meanwhile, everybody else is ordering Domino's. It's like, if you think that this is pizza, you're out of your gosh dang mind. It was so crazy. So crazy. I couldn't believe that this man told me I didn't know what pizza was. And I'll never forget it. I will never, it was such a core, it's like a core memory in my brain.
Oh my God. No, that's hilarious. I knew what you were referring to when you said that, but honestly, probably because you probably said it to me before.
I made it known on the campus. I had somebody at some point refer to me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I was Russell, the guy from New Jersey." I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. I can be that guy. I don't care."
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay. So I want to take a little bit of a step back to something you talked about a little earlier. You slightly touched upon how you realized plants were so powerful when you realized that years and years and years ago, before we had medications, that's how people healed themselves. That was the remedies that they used. So I'm curious if you can just touch upon a little bit on your opinion and thoughts on medications, pharmaceuticals, how you feel that ties in to society today as a whole, whatever your take on that is.
So for clarification, I am not a doctor. I have no degrees in anything medical related. So everything I say is, strictly opinionated, and should be taken with absolutely with like the grainiest of grains of salt. But I'm not like huge into like medications overall. I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm not saying that they don't have a place in our society. I think that medications are used, or should be more or less used, when it comes to like, I have like an illness and like it literally will not go away on its own. I need something strong enough to kill this virus, this bacteria, whatever it is in my body. Please, SOS, help me. But like, I'm not a person where it's like, I have a headache, I'm popping like an aspirin or an Advil or whatever kind of thing. and I'm not trying to be like, oh, like I'm so tough, I don't need Advil. I try and figure out like what else is it that I could use to cure my headache. If I'm feeling like bloated, or if my stomach's kind of bothering me, I'll make myself some like the herbal teas that I have, or I'll go in like my garden and I'll pick some like the herbal stuff that I have in my garden that I know is like good for like anti-bloat or like anti-inflammatory, or like it helps soothe like my stomach, whatever. I have a a night tea that I sometimes will take, and it works wonders. It knocks me out whenever I take it, and I have some of the best sleep with it too. Some of the most vivid dreams and everything when I take it. When I take it, I'm saying I take it as if it's medication, but it's just tea. And it's to me, it's fascinating to see the effects that some plants have on our bodies. And to be able to know and understand that, like, when you eat like asparagus, for instance, asparagus is something that people like commonly know that when you go to the bathroom later on, like it smells kind of funny after you eat asparagus. And all that is it's because asparagus is a diuretic and it helps flush out the sodium in your body. So what you're smelling is the sodium kind of just like leaving your body. You're not smelling the asparagus. And there's a lot of other things that do the same thing, like coffee does the same thing. Um, Dandelions are a diuretic, and a lot of people just think of them as weeds. But dandelions are a superfood, and the foliage of a dandelion plant has more protein in it than spinach does. And the roots and the leaves and the flowers of the dandelions can be used to make tea, and it's super healthy for your kidneys, and it's like an immune boost for the body. So I always love talking to people about how, plants have a purpose, and there's stuff in our own backyards that not a lot of people like know of. And I know there's a lot of people who are like into like herbal, or like all natural remedies for things, or herbal medications and stuff. And one of my favorite things about being able to learn about plants and understand the medicinal properties that a lot of them have is being able to look in my own backyard and say, I know what that plant is. That plant can help me if I like brush up against poison ivy. I just rub that on me and no more poison ivy, or the poison ivy goes away faster or something like that, or just soothe the itch, whatever it might be. It's so interesting to see this stuff. And when it comes to especially the stuff I brought up before about like native plants, a lot of Native Americans, if people were to like look into it a little bit more and just do research on Native American, remedies for, fevers or stomach aches or whatever it might be, you can learn about all the different plants that grow in your area based on like what Native Americans use, because the Native Americans were here before we were, and these indigenous people learned the land, and that knowledge was passed down through so many generations. So they knew how to work with the land. They did work with land. They cultivated the land in many ways too. So knowing the power that all of this stuff has, it's kind of mind blowing to me. But again, medications I think are necessary in certain situations, but I think explore all avenues before, taking certain things, especially when it comes like, say, like an antibiotic. You take an antibiotic and you're not just flushing out that one bad bacteria, you're flushing out a lot of good bacteria in your body too. So you need to find ways to replenish the good bacteria. And if you're constantly taking like antibiotics, there's potentially like bad effects it can have on your body, because you might be erasing crucial bacteria that your body like needs to function properly, So I think it just depends on it. People just need to like, research stuff a little bit more. I think, drink some tea next time you're having a headache, or, even just drink some water. Maybe you're just super dehydrated. You never know. But obviously if you have like a severe migraine, I'm not going to tell you like, oh, you need tea. Tea's your fix for this severe migraine. That's a little bit more complicated.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I know you're not a doctor, but I knew you would have a little bit of insight on that. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to take a little bit of a turn.
Okay.
Now, you might not remember this, but this comment is something I will remember till I die, and I will probably tell this to every single person. Now,
I know, I'm scared to see where this is going.
you might know the comment I'm referring to. Well, one of the pieces of advice that Russell gave me when I was struggling and dealing with a toxic narcissist in my life, he said this quote to me, and it was in my Instagram bio for years, and it changed my life. I tell it to everybody. So, and I want him to elaborate on it a little bit.
All right, here
So
we go.
Russell said to me, people are either in your life for a reason or a season, and either is okay. And mic drop, that changed my life. But I would love to hear your insight on what that, you're the one who said it. So what did that mean to you about 8 years ago? Maybe not 8.
That quote is like so. The quote. So my mom said it to me a long time ago. I was probably going through a relationship at the time, most likely, is what was probably happening. And or a breakup from a relationship or something like that. And I think that's when she said it to me. And I've just kind of carried it through my life with so many people, whether it was like friends, family members, relationships. It's such a the quote itself is it's so, I'm trying to think of like the way I would like describe it. I think it's just, again, like one of those, like you come down for a second and you're like actually be able to process and like really like think, okay, like what is this person like adding to my life? How is this person benefiting my life? Is this good, bad energy I want? Like, what is a lesson that I'm learning from this person? And everybody that comes into our life truly does have a lesson to teach us in some capacity. And sometimes it is like that. It's just like season. They're in and out. And they were here. It was a good time. We had a blast, and that was it. I was with them for good times and good times only. And sometimes there's a reason for it. Like they're here. They're my like lifeline. They're my life support. I couldn't like imagine my life without them. It could be something as serious as that too. And then sometimes it's it was a super toxic person who, you got dragged down hard and you didn't know who you were. And that's why you let yourself get dragged down. You weren't intentionally, dragging yourself down, but, you were just falling down this hole. And one day you kind of just woke up and said to yourself, wait a minute. Why am I doing this to myself? This is ridiculous. And you just kind of process, like it just hits you. And then you claw your way out of the hole, and you're climbing, you fall, you climb again, you climb again, you climb again. And then you get out of the hole and you realize, wow, I can't believe I let myself get that deep. How did I get that deep? And we don't even realize it. And there are people in our lives that do that to us, whether, again, the people are doing it to us intentionally or not. And it's so important, I think, for all of us to just keep in mind that, yeah, these things can happen, but at the same time, it's not a bad thing that it happened. There's always something positive. If there's something bad, there's always another side of the coin, and there's always a good thing that could be coming out of these situations. And I know that you kind of just briefly mentioned it, that the relationship that you were in when we first met was definitely not like the most A-OK relationship. But And it was something that like for myself, I would like look at you and I'd be like, why is she doing this? But it's again, like it's something that like we all need. It's like when your parents are like, you shouldn't do that, but like you do it anyway. Like your parents are looking at you when you're a child and you do the thing that they told you not to do, but you had to like you had to find out for yourself, like the stove is hot. Like I shouldn't touch the stove. Or I shouldn't run when the floor is wet. Like there's certain things that we need to experience for ourselves for our brains to be like, yeah, okay, that wasn't a good idea. Let's not do that again. And everybody's life's different. I've had my fair share of relationships, heartbreaks and stuff where people were looking at me saying, hey, this person is not good for you. You should not be doing this. Or this job is really just draining you. You need to leave. And I would stick it out. I would be like, no, this is fine. And then the lesson happens and I learn, I don't need this. I don't need them. And you grow. And the growth always happens when we're at the bottom.
That is very true. Thank you. You know, it also ties back into what we were talking about in terms of the gym and goals. Again, you yourself are the only one who can make the change for you. I had soul brother Russell telling me, what the hell are you doing? And I still didn't make the change. You could have everybody saying it to you, explaining to you, but until I agree with you, you hit rock bottom basically, or pretty close to rock bottom, and you realize, okay, now I've got to change. Something has to give. Something's got to shift.
Yeah.
I love how you mentioned jobs as well, because in my opinion, the people are either in your life for a reason or season relates to jobs too, whether it's experiences, jobs, locations that you're living. It's either in your life for a reason or a season. And you'll grow from that experience, whether it's the best experience of your life or the worst one that you cry every day through, you're still going to grow from it.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
Well, thank you.
Of course, Amanda. I'm so happy that I'm getting to share all this information, and I'm glad that we're like reminiscing too on like a bunch of stuff too.
I know. Yes, this has been great. So I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Actually, two. I scratched that. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about goals and a little bit about stuff like that as well. Mentioned a lot about how it's only you that can make the change for yourself. But what advice or tips or suggestions would you give to someone who is struggling to pursue their goal or their passion? They're stuck in their tracks and they just need, obviously they do need to do it themselves, but any other piece of advice you would give someone?
I would say the best thing that's for somebody to do is just like keep moving forward. And I know that sometimes it's hard to do, especially when you feel like you're like stuck in your tracks, or you feel like you're like making no progress, or like nothing good can come out of the situation like you're in any way, shape, or form. Like I know that that's tough, but it's important to keep moving, because truly the object in motion stays in motion. And as long as you're in a groove in some capacity, you always have potential to pick up momentum. And if you just stay stagnant, nothing's going to happen. And also truly, people, there's always like the famous saying of like, you always want to have like people who have like your back and, like, can like help, like, lift you up and like when times are hard. But the reality is that people will lift you up, but people aren't going to carry you, at least not for a very long time. Like if you're truly like down in the dumps and you had like something traumatic happen and you need people. People will be there for you. They'll be like your shoulder, like the shoulder that you need to cry on they'll be there for you to, to carry you and be like, listen, we got you, we got you. But eventually those people get tired. And it's not like to be rude. It's just like those people have their lives that they get to. And they can't be constantly putting energy into you. And you truly do need to know how to pick yourself up by your bootstraps sometimes, because it's an essential thing. You need to learn how to be independent. You need to know how to take care of you. And if that means that you rely on other people to help you figure out those methods, fine. But at some point, there needs to come a moment where you're like, I have to do this for me. I need to look out for number one, myself. And you just got to keep chugging. And whether you're crawling, walking, full on sprinting, something has to be going in order for you to make change. If you stay in the same spot, nothing's changing around you. Not the path isn't changing. The world isn't changing. You're going to stare at the same things in front of you until you decide to move, at least turn at the very least in place. You have to get something going.
I agree. And that was great advice. Thank you. So the last question I have for you is actually not a question from me. I wanted to have one question kind of from an outsider, someone who didn't know who the guest was and didn't really have any influence on it one way or the other. I asked one of my best friends what she would ask any random podcast guest that she didn't know, female, male, a single thing about them. So here's her question. What has been the best decision you've made in your life so far, and why, in your opinion?
There's so many. I shouldn't say there's so many, but there's definitely a lot of like decisions that I've made that are like super impactful on my life. And
First one that came to mind.
The first one that came to mind, honestly, was like studying abroad. Studying abroad was a whirlwind of growth, of emotions. I was in a foreign country. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my major in college was communications and Italian. So I had this nice little like double major that I did. And when I was in Italy, I've been studying Italian since I was in 8th grade. And I have people around me my whole life, not my family necessarily, but in like other friends and whatever, whose parents came from Italy. Like there's been so much influence of Italian and Italian culture around me that I was like dying to go. And when I went my senior year, I got the chance to go and see Italy. And I was like, oh, I need to keep going with this. I need to go to college and keep studying this. And when I was abroad, I was in such a weird place because I came out in college as I came out going into college, so like my senior year of high school, as bisexual. I came to like the realization like this is like who I am. Like I am a bisexual man. And by my junior year of college, I'm still processing and figuring out like what this means for myself, basically. On top of the fact that I had this guy at the time that I was seeing my sophomore year, and we broke up, and then we were trying to get back together, but then he got with this other guy, and I was devastated over it. So I'm in Italy, and I'm in a weird place where I'm like, I should be exploring and living my best life and doing everything for myself, but I'm like weirdly thinking about this guy that I shouldn't be thinking about this guy. But then I'm also like, but there's also all these other amazing people around me, and there was like girls that I was talking to and guys that I was talking to. And I was like, I'm in such a weird place. I don't know what's happening. I was so confused. And then the top of it, people are talking Italian around me, and I'm still trying to figure out how I'm even supposed to talk to people in Italian and just get a damn coffee, because that's just what I want while I'm walking to school in the morning. But like little things like just made such a big difference while I was there. And I mean, it was mainly just the like speaking Italian part that did it for me, because I would go to this pizzeria every Monday night and I would do my homework, and I got to know the waitress, not like super, super well. Like I didn't know her, like her family or like her whole like life story, or whatever. But she was always there when I was there. And if there was ever another waitress that was serving me, she would yell at them from across the room. And she would tell them, like, you should only be speaking to them in Italian. Like, obviously, she's saying all this in Italian. But I would be sitting there, and she knew that I was abroad and I was trying to practice my Italian because it was like the first conversation that her and I had because she saw that I was taking out books. And I'm sitting at this table in this small pizzeria just trying to study. And she made it her goal. Like, she said to me, like, I'm only going to talk to you in Italian, and you can only talk to me in Italian. So I would practice Italian with her. I would practice Italian with the other waitresses. I would walk down the streets in the morning. I would run to the gym in Florence, and I would talk to the guy at the front desk. I would have to like hand a card over to him when I like got to the gym. So I'd hand my card over. I'd say good morning to him, ask him how his day was going so far, go work out. He'd ask me how my workout was. I say, good, whatever. I did X body part that day. And then I would take my card and I would run back home. And then I would do my little stretch on the balcony of the apartment that we had, which was, so lovely. And then I would walk to class, and I would go to the little cafe, and I would walk in and I would ask for my breakfast pastry and my cappuccino, and I would ask for it to go. And the first day that I was there, or maybe not the first day that I was there, like during like the first like week or so that I was there, I said something to one of the hostesses, and she was like, "Oh, like you speak like really good Italian, like, and you're an American." And we had this whole conversation, and doing like these things and getting into like these habits and putting myself out there and meeting people and exploring places, going to Greece and island hopping around Greece and going to Switzerland and traveling to Switzerland. I got to see the world. I was independent. I was on my own. I was with friends, but I was just doing my own thing. And it was in a foreign country, just living my life. And I grew so much as a person in confidence that I was like, if I can walk up to a random stranger in Italy and just be like speaking this broken Italian to them, and they're conversing with me back or trying to converse with me back, how can I, like, why would I not be able to be in America talking to people casually, one, or even two, like, why do I lack confidence talking to people from a general sense when, again, I'm in this foreign country and I don't really know all that much, and I'm getting by, like I'm surviving. I'm literally not dead or in a ditch somewhere. Like I'm actively thriving. So when I came back my junior year, like my perspective just shifted. I was like over this guy. I was ready to take on the world, and I was like, here we go. Like life's life. I'm doing it. I'm living it. I'm ready for the next thing. And then the guy kind of came back into my life, and things got a little more complicated after that. But I had the tools. Like I was at this time around, it wasn't as hard of a hit. I was able to move on, and I was still able to thrive. And senior year was great, and life was good. And here I am, just doing my thing now, and I'm still figuring things out, but I'm not worried about it because I have this confidence that I've developed over the years, and it was a work in progress, but I'm here and I'm doing something.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's so beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. So before we fully wrap up, is there anything else you feel called to share or tell the listeners?
If you want a daily quote of the day, follow my Instagram handle. It's Russell the Muscle with 2 E's at the end. I literally post Monday through Friday, like it's my job. I post a quote of the day every day. I'm here for all the positivity. The fitness account has been pretty dry with the posts. It's more of like a wellness page now because we do incorporate the plants and stuff in there too. But I'm here to help the people. I'm here for the people. I'm a people's man. And I live to serve. I live to serve. I live to please.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I also love his quotes of the day, by the way. I will link and list out your actual Instagram handle in the show notes so people can find you directly
I
and
love it.
connect with you over there. But thank you so much for being on Manders Mindset. I super appreciate it. And I know the listeners are definitely going to benefit from all of your wisdom.
I hope that I shared something that somebody can take away from it. But I'm more or less just happy that I was here, Amanda, and I'm asked me to be here. It was so awesome to be able to just again reconnect and just see your face.
It was
And
awesome to see
coming
your
up to
face. So someone has to send me a text. That's what that means.
I will 100% be sending you a text. Don't you worry.
Good. Thank you again so much. And thank you all for taking time to listen to another episode of Manders Mindset. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, if you would rate it 5 stars, I would super appreciate that. If you enjoyed it enough to leave a review, that would be really great. Share this with your friends, share this with your mom, share this with your grandma, share this with anybody you think would benefit from hearing from this. And until next time, thanks for listening to Manders Mindset.